Your home is on fire. Everyone's safe. Your animals are safe. But you only have 30 seconds. You have to run inside. You can only get one thing. So the question that I have for you is, which bass are you going to get? And that's what I want to explore today. What makes an instrument really special? Is it the combination of quality components? Is it the winding of the pickups and where they're placed on the body? Is it the quality of the bridge or the electronics? Is it how valuable it is? Is it the quality of the setup and craftsmanship that went into it, or the type of wood? Or is it something that's harder to quantify, like you think it looks cool, or it reminds you of a memory or a season in your life or a person? Or is it some combination of all of those things together? And that's what I want to explore today. What makes a bass special? For me, I know what it is. It's this P-bass. I'm going to tell you why I love this bass, why I have it, how I got it, why it means so much to me. It's just going to be a storytelling video where we just hang out and talk about bass stuff. So if you're into that, stick around. And also, if you don't mind subscribing, I hate to ask, but it does help me out. Let's talk about why, to me, this bass is one in a million. 2011, 2012. I had just graduated from music school. I was trying to figure out my career. I wanted to be a session bass player. I wanted to be a touring bass player. I wanted to get good enough and to sound good enough that people would hire me to record in the studio or to go on the road with them. That was my goal. I was living in Atlanta at the time. I still live in Atlanta, by the way. I was thinking about moving to Los Angeles. So I went and visited Los Angeles. I got a private lesson with Sean Hurley, which more on that in this video if you want to hear more about that story. But amazing experience. One of the pieces of advice that Sean gave me was to get an old P-bass. So I took his advice, started saving up, went back home. I was playing a bunch of wedding gigs, bar gigs, teaching. I was playing at churches. I was doing a little bit of everything, just trying to pay the bills and be a bass player. Didn't have a lot of money, but I was working really hard. So saving up, I finally saved up about $2,500. In 2011 or 12, $2,500 was kind of the minimum amount that you could spend to get into the ballpark of a 60s instrument. I saw a Craigslist ad for a 66 P-bass. I went to the bank and I withdrew a bunch of cash, and I was getting ready to go buy this thing. Right around that time, I was getting ready to do all of that. Two of my greatest musical influences reached out to me and wanted to talk to me. And by two of my greatest musical influences, I mean my mom and dad. Two of the greatest influences in my life, obviously, but also they exposed me to a lot of great music growing up, and they encouraged me to be creative, and they also helped make it possible for me to get an education. So they're undeniably two of the greatest musical influences in my life. They sat me down and they said, hey, we see how hard you've been working, and we see what you're planning to do, and we want to go halfway with you on the P-bass. I just am forever grateful to my parents for that. I also really like that they didn't just buy it for me. They waited to see if I was going to buy it for myself and earn it for myself. And I also like that they didn't pay for all of it. They paid for half. So that means buying this bass was half my hard work and half the love of my family, which makes it very precious to me. Amazing mom and dad. Thanks, mom and dad. They watch all my videos. So anyway, went to Craigslist dude's house. He was a really nice guy, mid to late 60s. If I remember, I don't remember his name. He was selling a couple of really cool basses because he had arthritis and he couldn't really play bass anymore. And I can kind of relate to that more now after dealing with my own hand injury, if you want to learn about that. He just wanted this bass to go to a good home, and he was asking for $2,400. And I should say too, not all original. Not the original pickups, not the original pick guard, not the original tuning pegs. That's part of why the price was so good. And also because it was a 66, not a 65. So little history lesson. 1965, Leo Fender sold the Fender company to CBS. So what that means for me is this is not as much of a collector's item, but a great player's bass, right? And I'm not a collector. I'm a working bass player. I wanted a bass that sounded great and felt great, and this does. So back to the negotiations. I don't like to pay full price for things. I like to negotiate. And this is like, what am I, 22-year-old talking to a 60-something-year-old guy? I looked that man in the eye, and I said, "Sir, I know you want this bass to go to a good home. I'll play this bass every day for the rest of my life, and I'm going to use it to start my music career, and I really want it, and I have $2,000 cash. Would you be open to $2,000? I shook that man's hand, and I got this 66 P-bass for $2,000. I mean, to be fair, I only had $2,000 in the envelope. I had another $500 in the car, but he didn't even know all about that. I told him I had $2,000 cash, which is true. Negotiating tactic. Big brain. First thing I did is I bought period correct tuning pegs, and then I bought Fralin pickups to replace the active pickups that were in the bass. I think these Fralins do a really awesome job of restoring the sort of vibe of the original sound of this bass. And I'd love to hear this back-to-back against the 66 that is all original, but to me, I love this bass and I love the way it sounds just the way that it is. It's also cool because the guy said that it was a studio bass in Atlanta in the 80s and 90s. I don't know what studio, and this bass continues to be a studio bass. Aside from money towards an engagement ring for my wife, I'd say this is the best investment that I've ever made. I want to know, what's your favorite bass? What's the bass that's the most special to you, and why? Let me know in the comments. And also, I think I should say one thing. It's easy to sit here and romanticize vintage instruments, but I don't want to do that without acknowledging that vintage instruments are getting more and more expensive, and musicians' wages are not going up. The cost of living is going up like crazy, and the cost of gigs hasn't really changed in 30 years, which is a bummer for musicians. So if you're a young musician trying to get your hands on a 60s P-bass, I don't want to sit here and tell you that's what you need to do, because I don't know how realistic that is for a working musician. Use whatever you have. You don't have to have any specific thing. I think one of the most crippling things for musicians is, oh, I'll do X once I have Y. Just get out there and play and make things with the tools that you have. Ways you can support this channel: I have a bunch of links in the description. I have links to bass courses. I teach bass. I also have links to merchandise, and I have affiliate links. They're things that I genuinely believe in, the things that I have linked. So no pressure, but those are ways you can help me out. And if you can't do any of those things, just subscribing is huge. I do appreciate you watching this video and hanging out, because I really love making these videos for you, and I love talking about music, and I love bass. So thanks for watching today, and I'll see you on the next video. I have one tip for you today, and that's maybe how to find the bass that you connect with. To me, one of the most important things that's hard to change about a bass is how the neck feels. If the neck feels good, you can make the rest work. Because there's a rule that one of my mentors has called the rule of touch. The vibe of the rule is spend your money and carefully select the things that you spend the most time actually physically touching, right? So for example, get a good mattress, because you're going to spend a third of your life on the mattress. So for a bass player, your right hand is mostly just going to be touching the strings, right, which you're replacing. Boots on the ground, the most contact rule of touch with the bass that you have is the neck. So getting a bass that has a great feeling neck, I think, is the key. I'm not going to get into all the different types of bass necks today, but I do have one little anecdote to share with you. I'm also, in addition to loving basses, I love tobacco pipes. When I went to buy one of my first tobacco pipes, I went to this guy that has an antique store, and he knows a lot about pipes, right? And I told him I had $50. I want to buy a good pipe. What can I get for $50? And he brought out a box that had like 5 $50-ish pipes. They were all about the same value and the same quality. And I said, okay, how do I choose? And he said, just pick them up and the pipe will tell you. And that sounds a little mystical and all, but I tried it and I picked each pipe up one by one. And finally there was one in particular that I picked up. And when I held it in my hand, I was like, it's this one. This is the one that I feel most at home with. I like the way it looks. It's comfortable in the hand. Same thing with the bass. Pick up 100 basses, and sooner or later you're going to pick one up and you're going to feel it and you're going to hold it in your hands and you're going to say, I like this and this feels good to me. And we could try and quantify why, but I think the most important thing for you is that you like the way that it feels and you like the way that you sound and you look when you have that bass. And guess what? Everyone has a different take on what's cool sounding or cool looking, and that's part of what makes music cool, is we all disagree and we all have different personalities and different takes on things. So just go with what you think is cool and what feels good to you. That's my advice on picking a bass. Okay, that's all. I'm gonna stop preaching. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you on the next video.